Welcome to the Sanity Project podcast, where you can awaken your mind to clarity and success even in today's life challenges. We're here to provide insights and solutions that will help you live a sane, healthy, and prosperous life. Here's your host, Joanne Victoria.
Hello, everybody. This is Joanne Victoria with another amazing episode of the Sanity Project podcast. You're here to discover a life of clarity, confidence, sanity, and entrepreneurial success. And our guest today is Katherine Lazaruk, and she's been helping professional women and men learn to walk, talk, and act and look like leaders for over a decade and loves to challenge the status quo. She comes from a performance and education background with bachelor's degree in music and education and all of that jazz. And you can read her bio on my website. When she's not, well, it's just,
I know. You're like, we got 25 minutes.
I know. It takes some time. But then when she's not working, she's busy writing and publishing collections of long stories and short poems, singing and songwriting, taking walks and enjoying music and movies with her film editing husband and her wide circle of friends.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's the fun part.
Yeah. Well, they've got to know you're having fun.
Well, what else is life if not fun?
If you're not having fun, why bother?
Right.
So tell us what you do with boys and girls as leaders.
It's funny that you say boys and girls, because sometimes part of my work is really in the inner child piece, right? Because I think that's where a lot of people's fears reside, their worries about who they are, how they're coming across, and those kinds of things. And my work is through coaching and consulting. So the coaching piece is really helping people find their own answers around things, and the consulting is offering expertise. And my background is in image consulting. That was where I started my business at first, just straight image consulting. And I got into that by a complete fluke. I was working with a coach in between leaving teaching and moving to the corporate world. And the coach basically asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so I had this weird vision, which has never happened since and had never happened before. But it was my first company name and the first tagline I ever used. And that was ICU Image Consulting and Intensive Care for Your Image. And when I saw that, I just laughed. I'm like, well, that's not even a real job. Like, who does that job? And he said, no, it's a real job. You can do it. And that was sort of one of the first, maybe not the first instance of being opened to possibilities outside what I had thought, but it was definitely a big turning point. And because there's no regulation in my industry at all, I thought, I don't know, I look all right. Yeah, right. I'm like, I look all right. I've read some books. I'll get a website and some business cards and start practicing. And that's what I did. And I built my business up around my corporate job. So I worked evenings and weekends for a couple of years to get it going. And then when my contract ended at the firm that I was at in the recession, I was like, well, this is a great time to start an image consulting business full time. So I went to Toronto and I did my certifications there in image and advanced image, and then started teaching consultants how to be consultants at Langara, which is just a college here in Vancouver, BC in Canada, and built my practice. And then what happened, how I got into the leadership part, was because my clients started to go up the chain in their companies, because what I'm really good at is helping women in particular rapidly accelerate their progress towards senior leadership and in senior leadership. And so they would go up the chain. They'd say, we want you to come and work with our executive teams, but we're tired of explaining to the people that write the checks that you're not really an image consultant. So can you change your company?
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
Right? Because the optics, right?
Yes,
people are like,
God.
they have certain, conceptions about what image consulting is. And so I said, sure. And then I just changed it to Lazaruk Consulting, and I've never looked back. And it's been a really interesting ride, because like looking at your website and looking at some of the pieces that you talk to people about jumping off the cliff, that was definitely how I did it.
I don't know if there's any other way, unless you are in a job. I don't think there's any other way.
Yeah, it was interesting because I guess I did build it up around my job. I definitely did work evenings and weekends. I did do that. But when the door closed on that job, I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to do this. And this was the first time in my life where I had said to myself, there's no plan B.
Mm-hmm.
This is it. This has to work. And that made a big difference, because in my first, getting out of school, I was teaching in the public school system, teaching elementary school music part-time, and then singing. So I was singing in the opera. I sang in San Francisco in a small company, summer company there, and I sang in Vienna and a few other places. But
by the way,
had a plan
yes.
B. Oh yeah, by the way, no big deal. And the problem with that, I think, was I could not see it. I didn't have role models to follow. I didn't know what that life would look like. I only had my parents' messages, and my parents are relatively risk averse. You know, my mother was a teacher. My dad was a welder. They both had union jobs. They have pensions, and now they're retired and, you know, are snowbirds. So their view of life is very different than mine, and their risk tolerance is very different than mine. So the message that I got was, well, do you just want to be poor forever? Which of course I don't want to, you know, I would like to live. That would be good. And so I just didn't have any role models to follow. And now, of course, I have friends who are professional musicians, and I see how their lives are, where it's a combination of performance and teaching and coaching. And some of them have other things that they do, but it's a mosaic of things. There are not very many people who necessarily are able to just do one thing. And I think that's a huge myth that we need to bust for people. That somehow, if you're an entrepreneur and you're doing your thing, that you are somehow not good at what you do, or somehow it's not real, or somehow, oh, well, you know, that's not a thing. It's totally a thing. And the degree to which you practice it, I don't know. It kind of only matters where it matters.
Well, I think it's important to say that, because most people, what was I watching? I was watching a rerun of something last night on the television. I think it was Blue Bloods. Don't ask. It's most of it is a bad show, but some of the writing is good. So I like watching, you know, even if I can get 10 minutes of good writing, I'm happy. Yeah. And when they was, oh, what are you going to do? What are you're going to go to college and you better plan on getting a job. And I'm going, no, you're not supposed to do that. Because I had just read someplace else that Brene Brown had said she wouldn't give $1 to her kids if they knew what they wanted to be when they were going to college.
Right.
And, you know, they never knew about, you know, costume design or music or whatever, the things that you discover along the way. And, you know, you just don't know what they are. Oh, you go to, you know, you're in the theater. Oh, what about that? What about this? Right. What about that? Right. And this is what you're talking about. And I think that's a reality. And I think that's going to, if there's a commitment anywhere, I don't know. But I think that kids, people, anybody is looking at, they have choices. They can do half of their job there and 25% there and 25% someplace else, and they're happy.
Yes. And I mean, I really think it depends on the person. I have one of my good friends is a lawyer, and she knew she wanted to be a lawyer when she was 8 years old. She used to play law. She was fascinated by it. She went to school. She became a lawyer. She became a partner. She's got the house. Her husband's a lawyer. Like, it was a solid linear path. But she is one out of, I'm trying to think if I even have another friend like that. There's few people that I know that have that kind of knowledge early on. And I used to be very envious of people that had a linear path, particularly when I was in the place of being confused and feeling like, well, I'm trying this and it's not really working. And I'm trying this and it's not really working. And I'm trying this and it's not really working. And oh my God, and I'm really good and nobody's noticing.
Right.
Which is a little bit egocentric, right? I mean, let's get real. But it was that piece of being confused.
I think it's important to, know that you're interested in many, many things.
Sure. And so when I was in that place of confusion, what I didn't realize at the time was that there are two different kinds of thinkers. And I remember explaining this to one of the women in one of my image consulting classes years ago, because she had a boyfriend who was really linear, and it was driving him crazy that she was trying all these different things, artistic things, design things, whatever. And I said to her, I said, think of it this way. I said, you're at the center and you go in one direction and you come back and go in another direction and come back and you go and you're creating these spokes. And I said, eventually what's going to happen is all you're doing is creating a web. Those points that you're going out to that just look like very separate, disparate directions are all going to connect at some point to create whatever it is you're going to do. because you don't leave your past behind in that way. You bring those skills with you, and eventually they will morph into something where you're using all your skill sets all the time, provided you still want to use those skill sets.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you're just a web thinker. You're not a linear thinker, and it's okay to be a web thinker. And when I realized that for myself, I was like, okay, so it is, first of all, it's okay for me to try different things. And some of them will, and what even is working anyway. I mean, let's get real about that as well. But it's this idea of it's okay to try different things. And I think everyone is so impatient. There's so much pressure. At least there was when I was growing up. Maybe it's lessening. I don't know. I have some faith in sort of the 20 somethings that I'm meeting that seem to be more grounded and reasonable about their development. Everybody's so impatient. Top 40 under 40, top 30 under 30. You got to make it. Your life is over by 40, blah, 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 blah. Like, I really want to see the top 100 under 100 list.
Right.
That is a list I want to see, because so many people, I think it was something, Cézanne, I think, didn't paint his first or sell a painting until he was like 80, something like that. There's a whole bunch of people who are we're living longer and doing things differently. Like when I went out for my business, I think I was 38 when I went out full time. And I'm 52 now, and I just wrote my first 2 books like in the last 2 years. And I just got my first book deal on Monday, for my business book. And so life is long, and there's room, if you're lucky, life is long. And I think as long as, like, people say to me, they're like, do you regret anything? And I'm like, no, I don't. Because even if I died tomorrow, God forbid, but if I died tomorrow, at least I would know down in my bones that I was on the right track. I'm discovering things. I'm learning things. I've got a sense of what value can I bring to the world? How can I contribute? What's my sort of purpose here on earth? I have a good, strong sense of that. And that helps me continue doing what I'm doing on the days when I'm tired, or on the days when I feel kind of like running away. And sometimes I do run away. I run away. I learned from a business coach, actually. One of the business coaches that I worked with seriously for a long period of time. She really helped me. She goes, you're allowed to run away. She goes, just don't run away forever.
Mm-hmm.
You're allowed to run away. So I would be like, so I would give myself permission to run away for the afternoon, or run away for a couple of days. And then when I came back, I felt refreshed and ready to go again. But when I was in the moment of wanting to run away, I just wanted to burn it all to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting about that. The life path of people looks linear from the outside. But you've heard that phrase where it's like, it's a mistake to compare your movie to somebody else's trailer.
Mm.
Right?
Yes.
That's what we see a lot of on Instagram and stuff, is you see the trailer. You're not seeing the movie.
You're not seeing the movie, and you never will in places like that. Social media, no. It's just not going to happen, because that world moves faster.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so fast.
I'd have a lot of dates if I paid attention to Instagram. Hi,
the DMs. Hey, baby.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I'm getting. It's like, go away. I don't even, just go away. What is this? Well, I think what's important.
People seeking connection. Who knows?
Well, it does.
Sugar mama.
Yeah, not going to do that. So what do? You take your long stories and make them into short poems?
Oh yeah. So in my artistic life, this was the other big thing for me. So for the last many years, I was focused really strongly on my business, growing my business, establishing my business. That was where a lot of my creative energy went. And so I sang a bit on the side, and, it wasn't a big focus. And then when the pandemic hit, of course, I had time, because my business tanked. It dropped about 85% in the first sort of quarter after the pandemic hit. And I suddenly had a lot of time on my hands, and I got kind of, first I drank a lot and ate a lot of Doritos. So there was
How bad. Right? It's like everybody else.
My cocktail cabinet. Oh yeah. My cocktail cabinet is legendary now. It's amazing. But I started to have some more space to think creatively. And my husband and I are polyamorous. And so I had a relationship, like our first sort of exercise of that, because you can be functionally monogamous and still be poly, right? But when you're actually dating somebody outside your relationship, it's an adjustment. So we had the first experience with that. And I had written a lot of poetry to this lover because, I was in love. It's all new relationship energy. It's very hot and heady. And I started writing poetry. And then when that came to an end, and I wanted to write a book. And really, I wanted to write a business book. So I like to do this thing where I just open up my notebook and I write questions to the universe. Like if I don't know how to do something, I'll be like, okay, universe, who do I need to talk to?
Right.
Who do I need to meet? What am I missing that I don't know? And then I just close the book and walk away. And eventually,
oh, no, that's the way to do it.
Yeah. Eventually just something percolates to the surface. So about a week later, a name sort of bubbled up, Tina Overbury, who is a marvelous woman. She's a great writing coach. She is the managing director of a company called Powerhouse here in BC that is Indigenous led, women led, for leadership for women as well. And she does this writing coach thing. So, and I'd known her years ago in another life from business networking, when she was selling Arbonne. So she also has had a number of changes. Anyway, I email her and I'm like, hey, I want to write a book. And are you doing this story coaching thing? Did I hear that somewhere? And she's like, yeah. And I'm having a retreat. You want to come? I'm like, yeah, I want to come. So we did this socially distanced retreat on one of the Gulf Islands up here in this beautiful oceanfront property. And I talked about the business book, and then it became very clear that there was some artistic piece that needed to come out first. And so I printed out all the poetry that I'd written, and it was about almost 4,000 words of poetry, which is a good chunk of poetry.
Yes, it is.
And I printed it all out and I threw the stack on the table, dropped the stack. I didn't throw it. I dropped the stack on the table and it was like, made a weighty kind of thunk. And I'm like, okay, this is something and I need to write this book. So that was the first book I wrote, which is called Love is Not Pie, Variations on a Monogamish Theme. And it details the whole story and it talks about how, how we navigated it, what the challenges were, how my husband's relationship and how my marriage changed because of it in really great ways. Because the thing about being polyamorous is that you have to question every automatic thing that you don't really think about if you're heteronormative and mononormative, right? You're dating, you get more serious, you're exclusive, you move in, or maybe you get married and then you move in, or, and then you have kids and you ride the escalator all the way to the top, which is, the pinnacle of marriage, kids, you die together, that kind of thing. But at any point you can choose to step off the escalator. And so this is a different way of living, because I don't necessarily believe that monogamy is for everybody. Certainly not for me. So, and
I don't believe marriage is for everybody.
Well, exactly. Right. Yeah. Cause marriage sucks. If you're married to the wrong person, holy hell, it's like horrible.
I mean, I'm sorry it's a distraction right now to what you're talking about,
okay.
but no. I have been married twice.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And, it's like now I'm looking at it going, why does anyone want to marry anyone else?
Right.
Is it for the children, quote unquote, those poor little bastards? Or is it, they'll manage. Right. Or is it what is it for? Why? They don't need to own us anymore. That's what it was all about.
Yeah, sure.
And owning women, chattel. Yeah, and I'm going, what's the point? Oh, you have to get engaged. No, you don't.
You don't. Yeah, you don't. And
you don't. And I don't know what alphabet I'm in there with that, if any. But I don't believe in it. I just don't believe in it. I mean, you're with somebody for, let's just say people from the prior generation, they're with their people, their husbands, wives, for 40 or 50 years. God bless. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's fine because they did that. That's what they knew. But right now, I've been going on this for about 10 years now. It's like, why are they getting married? Mm-hmm. Because it's going to fail. But is it going to fail?
Well, I don't know. So I've been married once. This is still my marriage. But my theory on it has always been this. So before, when marriage was an institution for the exchange of, the controlling of property and wealth.
Right.
You got married when you were 15 and you died when you were 30. So like 15 years till death do us part is super reasonable. You can do 15 years in your sleep. A lot of people do, right?
Yes.
But now, let's say you get married when you're 30 and die when you're 90. That's 60 years. That's 4 times as long.
No.
So you're either going to end up with 4 marriages or 4 different marriages with the same person. And that's kind of the route that I've gone. My husband and I renegotiate stuff all the time. We're having like a state of the relationship conversation. And it's like, before we got married, we had lots of long conversations about why we wanted to, what was the point, had all the conversations about the deal breakers. And I was like, look, my life is my life and your life is your life. And the marriage is the relationship we're going to build between us. And every day we're going to choose, are the actions that I'm taking now building the relationship? Do we want to keep building it? Do we want to change it? Or are we doing something that's tearing it down? And we want to be very mindful of what we're doing in relation to each other. And my belief is that the only reason to be in relationship with anybody is to learn and grow.
That's it.
That's it. That's the only reason. I mean, aside from the fact that it can be very pleasurable and there's a shit ton of a lot of compensations.
Oh, don't worry about swearing.
Yeah. Okay, good. There are a lot of privileges that come with being married. There's a lots of tax privilege. There is joint economic benefit, but you also don't, aside from the tax privileges and sort of benefits privileges, I know in the States, there's some things with that healthcare. Aside from those things, which are not insignificant, many of the other benefits can be achieved by going into common partnerships. I have friends who are buying real estate together. Women that are like single moms that are teaming up. They're like, look, we're going to have a household together and we're going to raise our kids together and we're going to gain financial power through doing those things. So there's many different ways to do it. But for me, I wanted to be married because I like the convention and I was curious to see what would happen if I had that kind of boundary around me. Because in my book, I said, it's what happens when an uncontainable force, which is me, meets an unbreakable container, which is my husband. So I was curious. So that was why I wanted to get married, because I wanted to see what it would be like. And with my husband, it's been particularly good, but he also has an amazing growth mindset. He's a particular thinker. We have a lot in common. And we had so many talks about your values. What do you think? And even now that he's moved, he's in a career now that it really satisfies him. He changed from the corporate world into film editing. And now he's showing parts of himself to me 20 years later that I didn't get to see and would never have gotten to see if we hadn't sort of just been very conscious about, yeah, we're actually poly, and yeah, we're going to do this, and yeah, you're going to change careers, and yeah, I'm going to do my business. And I'm like, you need to be fulfilled as a person. So let's do that too. Like, let me do what I need to do to support you to do that. And that to me is a true marriage. It's a partnership. It's a team. It's a absolutely conscious choice.
Yes.
And so as a result, I am incredibly lucky to have a very good marriage that I expect to last for a long time. But we've probably had like 6 marriage renegotiations along the way.
Right. Well, that's what I think should be happening with people.
Right.
They should be doing that all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, not all the time. It's not a daily task, but it's like, on special times, special days, your anniversary or something like that, you sit down and talk once a month, whatever it might be. You've got to get that taken care of.
That's right. Because little problems become really big problems really fast. And
don't they, though?
Yeah. We did a lot of reading, like any of the John Gottman work or any of like the love languages, lots of those pieces, like attachment theory. We did a lot of, I'm a personal growth junkie. I admit it. I'm here to learn as much as I can and grow as far and fast as I can in this chunk of life that I've got. So I would say that my habit of choice is personal growth stuff, or team growth stuff, communication stuff, peopling stuff, how to be a better people.
How to be a better people. Okay. So then let's go to your new business book.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So the business book, so after writing Love Is Not Pie, then I wrote Songs for My Father, which was about my connection with my dad. Had to dig that stuff out, did some singing around that. And now I'm continuing down that path with a third art book. But finally, the business book has arrived. And it's, the working title right now is Whole Person, Whole Presence, Integrating the Personal and Professional to Accelerate Progress. And what it's about, I really believe that the age of compartmentalization is over. And now I have a lot of sympathy for people who were successful in the past leadership model, which is hierarchical, authoritative, and compartmentalized.
Such fun.
Yeah, I know, right? And I feel kind of bad for people that were really, and not just men who were successful in it, but also women who had to act like men to get there, and they were successful in it. Because I think the cognitive dissonance that they're experiencing right now, as the world is slowly melting into this flat, sort of integrated relational whole kind of leadership model, they're freaking out. They don't know what to do. Some of them are doubling down on the old habits and trying to rein it in through control. Some of them are kind of flailing around, trying to figure out what to do. And some of them are adapting beautifully. And so the book, for me, is all about what it means to be whole, which is not finished, right? You're not finished, but to be whole as a person, and what it means to show up at a work setting as a whole person. Because, sometimes what we get is people will be like, we want you to bring your whole self to work. And then you show up with your whole self at work and they're like, no, not like that.
Right.
Like, okay, well,
right.
Like how then? And the boundaries are shifting around what is personal, what is professional, what does professional look like? What does it sound like? How do we behave? And, what are the social contracts around that? And for people that are private, how do they navigate the boundary between, well, this is what I want to keep to myself and this is what I want to share at work, and still remain whole as people, right? So it's going to be an interesting exploration, and I'm really looking forward. I always look forward to writing things because the journey, it's sort of like, well, I don't know how it's going to turn out. I have an idea. I have an outline. Obviously, I made a proposal that's got an outline of the chapters. But when I get into the writing process, she's my writing coach, as I mentioned earlier, and she is fond of saying the story's on the move, that you don't always know where you're going to end up, and that it's okay not to know in story or in anything else in life. It's okay not to know.
It's best not to know.
Yeah, I think so. I think one of my colleagues, Rich Litvin, he works as a coach down south in LA, I think is where he's based. And he said something we were at a masterclass with the coach that we're both working with now, Alan Weiss, who is also super cool. And Rich said something that just really stuck with me. And he said, clarity is overrated. I was like, damn, man.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
Many, many things that we do and we're told to do and we're told that they're important to be done are overrated. Why?
Oh, overrated,
you have to keep asking why.
Yeah, why? And the next piece, I think, for people to understand is you just need to see like 5 feet ahead of you, 10 feet ahead of you.
That's about it.
20 feet ahead, because also I think we used to be able to forecast more accurately. Like people could, like in business, for example, even now with the teams that I'm working with, when they're talking about strategy, I'm like, there are no more 5-year plans. Like that, you can't do that.
No,
everything's changing too quickly. So if you have a 6-month plan, that's the best you're going to get.
Yep.
And so don't stop trying to apply things that worked in the past to the future. Stop pretending your future is going to be the same as your past, because it isn't, and it can't be, because everything is different. So just don't think that, don't limit your thinking and don't limit your actions based on evidence from the past.
Well, that works. I would say, if more people can act like themselves, even if it scares others. I mean, I've always tried isn't the word, but I've always acted like myself. That's even a joke right there. But
I'm performing myself. Tonight the show is Joanne Joe.
Yeah.
It's great.
I've always been myself in any situation. Myself has changed.
Yes.
In situations, those same situations. I would have spoken up more. I do that now, hopefully. And there are certain things that I don't talk about in public.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because people make assumptions and then, and then it gathers its own little tail.
It's very true that does happen. People jump on sound bites. So it is important to be careful what you say in public, for sure. But I would argue that it's important to be careful what you say anywhere you're going to say anything to anyone.
That's right.
And not careful like, oh my God, I have to be so scared of what I'm going to say because people won't like me. It's more like honor the words that are coming out of your mouth and honor the people that are hearing them and honor yourself by saying them. So it's worth thinking. That's think before you speak, right? It's worth saying, what do I want to say here? What's going to be impactful? Is this piece of whatever that's coming out of my mouth useful? I think you have to. But to your point about acting like yourself, 100%. And I would say that you asked me what I do earlier, and I think one of the chief things that my clients would tell you that I do is help them be more themselves, because I think that's how we get ahead in the world together, collectively. We all show up with all of our gifts and all of our strengths and all of our talents, and we share them with one another, and we help each other fill the gaps. Whatever you're really great at, then I don't have to worry about it, because you're doing that work in this world.
Yeah, I'll give you a call.
Right? Like whatever I'm really good at, you don't have to worry about that work, because I got that load. I got you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is why I think the competitive mindset is also deeply unhealthy at this moment in time. I think it's useful in certain situations, for sure, for fun. There's some aspects to competition that are great fun. But I think the collaborative piece, first of all, it's way harder to do. So people need more relational skills to be able to do it, and to be able to understand the benefit, and to, it needs to be in their own interest to do it. So they need to see that it's in their own interest to do it. But collaboratively, it's way easier to do things. And anyone that says, oh, I'm self-made, I did it myself, I'm like, no, you didn't.
No.
No, you didn't. You had tons of help. I had tons of help. You've had tons of help in your life. Like, it's ridiculous to think I have to do it on my own. And that whole thing about, that adage about pulling yourself up by the bootstraps, that phrase was coined to show that it's impossible. You cannot do that. You cannot pull yourself up by your own, because you're standing on them. Like, you can't, right? Can't do that. It's impossible. So we need each other. And the only way that we get to really understanding each other is to see each other deeply and to know each other deeply. And it's terrifying for people who have been taught by their experience or taught by their parents that it's not okay to be themselves, that it's not okay to be as big as they are, that it's not okay to share themselves, it's not safe, right? It can be super terrifying for people to even peek into that. But I think the more of us that model handling that with some grace, I think the better it is for the people that are thinking, yeah, I could be a little bit more myself. And in fact, even asking the question for people that are really just starting out. I mean, I've had women that I've worked with where they're like, God, I don't even know what I want. I haven't thought about myself for years. Because of course, the model for women in particular has been, we advance by sacrificing everything.
I'm done sacrificing. I'm done running. Right. I'm done with all of that.
We're all done. Yeah, we're done with that now. So
done with
now, yeah, we're done with that. And now it's, you know what? I am going to help people move forward. I'm going to help myself move forward too.
There we go.
That's important. That's a really important chunk, because we know that the systemic barriers exist. Like, we're society, we put them there. We know that they're there. And for people that come to work with me, I often have the conversation with them, about the situation. And then I ask them, I say, well, are you sad about it or mad about it? Because if you're sad about it, 100% valid. Get some therapy, roll up in a burrito in your bed and cry, take a bath. I've done all those things, like watch movies and like collapse on the couch, eat Doritos, whatever you need to do to feel all those feelings. Very important. And then when you start to get a little bit aggravated, irritated, annoyed, the sound of women over 40 everywhere is like, oh, right. Start to get annoyed. That's when it's time to call someone like me.
There we go.
Because then you have the action. You need a little bit of that fuel to start acting, and that's a great time to call.
Okay, to call Katherine Lazaruk, and you can, pardon?
Lazaruk, yes.
Lazaruk.
I know, tricky.
Yes. And you can go to her website and sign up for her monthly newsletter. We share ideas and promote events for clients and potential clients. Mm-hmm. And if you want to have a conversation with her, you can call her as well. Mm-hmm. And that's about it. I want to tell people who are listeners to do what I always tell them to do. I hopefully remember in every podcast, but I am not perfect. Actually, I am perfect, but not always. So you can use a pen and pad and take notes. Listen to this podcast again and take notes, because you have forgotten more than we've said.
True. Very true.
So I want to thank Katherine for being here today, and you can find out everything about her at her website, lzrkconsulting.com, mm-hmm. and all her social media social media? What is
like Instagram, LinkedIn, or kind of.
I'm just looking at your first link. Anyway, all of it's here on my website, and I want to thank Katherine for being here today. She's been a joy. True. And I've enjoyed it, and I think that there's a lot for people to look forward to. Okay, so just do that. Mm-hmm. Just do that with your lives. Yeah, you got plenty of time.
Yeah, you got time.
Thank you. It's been
Thanks
fun.
for having me. Yeah,
you're welcome.
So much fun. Okay.
Take care. Okay. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Sanity Project podcast. Please go to askjoannevictoria.com to listen to more podcasts. Check out Joanne's coaching programs and get a free copy of her report, 5 Steps to Achieve Life-Work Harmony. That's askjoannevictoria.com. Take care, and thanks for being here.